Another episode of Underrated and Overlooked podcast. Man, we have a lot to talk about today. We're going to be into the latest in recruiting. Georgia Tech having an unbelievable class right now. I think top 13 and top 20 on 247 Sports and Rivals. We get into some baseball, some really great stats Kirk was pointing out to me prior to the show. So we're going to talk about that as well. And then we're going to talk about a little bit of NBA and the latest with the draft and major trades happening there. But without further ado, Craig, how you feeling?
Happy Dead Week. It is the GHSA Dead Week. That means no activities allowed. So it's supposed to be a down week, but we are definitely still busy. Last time we were on, I think it was right after the NBA Finals. We have a ton to catch up on, and I think the recruiting news is probably the biggest headline so far. It has been really busy in the month of June. Tons of guys are committing. There's going to be more in July, and we'll see a big push right before the season kicks off, which is also coming up in just several weeks.
Yeah, I can't wait, man. I mean, you were breaking some of it down yesterday. We had more guys committing and things like that. But my biggest standouts, you probably know him well, Craig. Christian Gregory from Calhoun just committed to Liberty. I think he's a defensive or offensive lineman, not mistaken. But major player for them. One of the reasons why they're able to run the ball so well.
Absolutely. And then Liberty's actually been pretty active. They had the big one with, was it Devin Henderson from Cass?
Who, Calhoun?
No, Liberty University.
Yes. You're right.
They just got the Cass guy, and funny enough, they're in the same region, so that will be a heated game. Cass versus Calhoun, and future teammates lined up in that one that will both be playing a huge role. I think that's exciting, coming from that region especially.
No, 100% agree. I think that is exciting. It's going to be something to see. We're actually going to get a good look at Calhoun early in the season. Week 2, Carolina Bash, they're playing you got to remind me, Craig.
They're playing Carver Atlanta, and then
That's
think is Cass playing? Are they playing Rome or
they're playing
Creekside?
Rome. No, they're playing Rome.
Okay, who's Creekside got?
I think Creekside got Kennesaw Mountain.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Which is going to be interesting to watch too.
How good is Cass going to be this year? That is, we'll get into the favorite teams or ones I'm most excited to look at. But I'm telling you, last year they had a lot of close losses. We've never seen them like really excel, but that'll be an interesting region for sure. How good's Calhoun going to be the defending region champs?
Yeah.
But they've also had some tough outings against Cass in recent seasons. Also have even dropped games to Hiram, who I have some news on that too. But that will be one of the most competitive regions in the entire state in 5A.
100% agree. And then we had another big commit, Jamel Allen from Mountain View, 3-star. He committed to Duke University. I think that was last night. One of their major defensive linemen for their group. I think that's another good player that Duke's picked up. They recently picked up also Chase Tyler from Hiram. I don't know if you had that in your news too. But I think Duke has been, quietly having a pretty decent recruiting class as well.
Yeah, I think Jamil, he plays both sides of the ball. So, I think he's either a starting guard or center, but it looks like at Duke he'll be defensive line. Is that right?
Probably. Yeah, I think defensive line.
So, yeah, and Mountain View had a really successful season last year. One of those Gwinnett schools you typically think of the Parkviews, the Brookwoods, the Graysons. But in terms of Mountain View and Meadow Creek, they opened up a little more recently, but they're starting to really build up. And Gwinnett overall, I think, is becoming more competitive with teams popping up like that. And obviously Mountain View in the past, they haven't been promoting a bunch of college prospects like these other schools, but we're starting to see that trend change as well.
100% agree. And then another big one, you'll probably like this one, Craig. Trey Linhart from North Oconee. He committed to Appalachian State.
Yep.
I thought that was another good get for them as well in the Sun Belt Conference. He's really good, very versatile DB out there for North Oconee. Reason why they've had so much success in the recent years.
Yeah, really sound player. He was in that defensive backfield last year with Khalil Barnes. They had an incredible run. He's one of watching film last year from some of the playoff games. I'm like, man, North Oconee is a really tall secondary. They're making a lot of big plays, but he's also a big-time hitter. He knows the game extremely well. That defensive backfield also had Jack Fabris last year, who ended up signing with Kansas. So he's been starting in that secondary with tons of D1 guys, tons of all-state prospects. He's the latest one. I think App State, they'll be excited to put him in the Sun Belt.
100% agree. And then I think a kid that we're not talking about enough that really impressed me, and actually I want to get into that. I know you talked a little bit about it on your show, Craig, but Corky Kell, we got to cover it. So I think we should recap it a little bit, what stood out to us. But first and foremost, I think Sean Wilson, we're not talking about him enough. Kid from Alpharetta, he was number one. I really think he was one of the standouts for me, right? He has a high catch radius. He recently just competed in Auburn, obviously Alabama, at their camps. But the kid has offers from UCF, USF, Georgia State, Miami of Ohio, Toledo, Wofford, and Western Michigan. So for me, he's kind of, I know how you feel very strongly about Dylan Williams. That's kind of how I feel about Sean Wilson. I think he's one of those guys I think is in store for a big season. Obviously, we'll have to see how their passing stats going to look. Different quarterback, no Ben Guthrie now, but I think he's one of those guys. If you just put it in his vicinity, he's going to go get it. And he's very aggressive at the top point of the football. I think, man, he's just a playmaker. I think he's going to make a lot of plays for Alpharetta, and I can see him having an 800-plus yard season and 10-plus TDs.
Yeah, I mean, big question will be his quarterback this year without Guthrie, a multi-year starter, incredible performer. But the offense is going to stay the same. Alpharetta last year had one of the more explosive offenses. We saw it right out of the gates in that shootout with Jefferson. They'll be opening the season once again with him. You mentioned the comparison to Dylan Williams. When I see a guy like Dylan Williams, I just view him as a clutch receiver. What does that mean? It means there's parts in the game where you're going to throw up a 50-50 ball. Some guys always make the catch no matter how difficult it is, no matter the contact. I saw that with Dylan Williams, and then you talk about a guy like that in the Alpharetta offense that is able to make the play when his number is called. You've seen him firsthand, so I definitely trust your instincts on that. But I can't speak highly enough of Dylan Williams, who I was on the field at Bobby Dodd watching Roswell throughout that, and I'm telling you, in terms of difficult catches, I mean, he had the game winner, impossible Hail Mary situation, went up with one hand. And then he had others where, I mean, this is 7-on-7, but the safety came down, a legal flag, like absolutely laid him out, and he still made the catch.
Right.
And he's just been probably having one of the better off seasons. Balled out in the Walton game too, making all these one-handed catches, and he's been doing it since the last 3 years. He was a key receiver for Robbie Roper. He had the catch of the game in their Denmark outing last year. And then KJ Smith at quarterback, he seems to have a nice kind of relationship with Williams. I think he's going to have a massive year. His offers have not started to blow up yet. I really think that's going to change early on.
I think you described it well, too, when you said about that one-handed catch he had at Georgia Tech and just, how – and all you were of just like the play he made. And I 100% agree with you. I think Dylan Williams is a player, 15-plus offers now. I think he's going to have a real good season. And I talked to Pat Carlisle, their offensive coordinator. I thought he brought up a great point. He was like, well, not a lot of people know about him because he had to kind of be behind, Ethan Nation, Chris Elko. They're really good tight end. Like, they had so many weapons that some of their underclassmen didn't really have a chance to shine. So I can't wait to see how he's going to evolve, how he's going to look, being that kind of focal point of that offense. Obviously, besides Nakai Davenport, who's great as well, and KJ Smith, but them airing the ball out, that's what made Roswell so dangerous last year, right? They could run the ball and they could throw it, which I think is no different this year. But him being the kind of set number one receiver, I can't wait to see how he flourishes and plays.
Yeah, I was reading a description about him because he's been getting a lot of write-ups recently. This is the best way I'd describe him. He makes remarkable plays consistently. There's not a lot of receivers that can do that. I mean, you might make one or two, but then, that ball was overthrown. He'll make a catch where you think there's no way, and then he just goes up one-handed. It reminds me of Justin Jefferson, just with these free catches. And he's physical, he's tough, and, I mean, the way he was catching it with contact, that is difficult.
100% agree. And real quick, Craig, just quick recap, doesn't have to be long, but just what was your biggest standouts from Corky Kell 7-on-7 tournament? Real quick for me, I just think it was a great tournament. I loved how these players, like, on the spot, like players not known, right, 2026 class, even like rising freshmen, just getting offers from Tech right on the spot just from their performance of the day. I thought it was great, and I think it's going to be something that grows as, time goes on. I think it's going to be, phenomenal for the players because they're going to be able to get exposure. And as I said, Georgia Tech a program on the rise, and they're still a Power 5 program. So it really was a great event.
I think because I didn't get to see every team, but I got to see a lot of them. I was impressed with Peachtree Ridge. I was impressed with obviously Cedar Grove's defensive backs were just in mid-season form. I was impressed with North Cobb, what they were able to do throughout the tournament. Thought Parkview was impressive, and then similar to Peachtree Ridge, I thought Meadow Creek came out. They showed they have some playmakers as well. In the lower classifications, obviously Hapeville Charter, the way they handled that tournament was incredible. They have a lot of talent at the quarterback position, some great athletes in the backfield as well, some speed. I think they're going to be dangerous in 4A. And then I also liked, obviously Walton looked great. Jeremy didn't disappoint. And then thought it was a big win for Parkview to you have a new coaching you have a new head coach, but what I think about Parkview last year, they were inconsistent. They could beat anyone, but they could also lose some games where you thought they probably should have won. I think they dropped one to Newton in region play, had a couple other slip ups, but I don't know. I mean, in terms of talent and offensive balance this year with Kyer Spain and Maddox in that athlete role, Mike Matthews.
They just have so many weapons.
Yeah. They really have a balanced offense that I think can really put the defense on its heels.
Yeah, I think for me, real quick, before as teams, I think Douglas County stood out. They had a deep run. I thought they stood out, started a little shaky, but, I thought Sayer was just throwing a lot of dots and dimes. I just felt like his receivers early were dropping the ball. They're going to be a team to watch. They made a Final Four appearance. North Cobb really stood out all day long. They were really competitive. I think they started off 3-0. If you guys want to see that interview, go to our Score Atlanta Instagram page. It's on there. I thought he did a really good job. I think also, obviously, Parkview, I think Collins Hill, to me.
That's true. Yeah.
They were very impressive. Talked to Coach Swick for a good 10, 15 minutes, and they got some dudes. They're going to be a team not a lot of people are going to talk about, but I think diamond in the rough, right? They got a lot of players, some dudes on that defensive line. They're averaging 6'3", 250. Not just them. They got playmakers. C.J. Hector getting some interest from Tennessee. T.J. Wilcox, their quarterback, going to, UNC. I mean, they're going to have so many weapons, and I think they're going to be a really interesting team to watch. Obviously, Parkview 100% agree. Seeing Mike Matthews and Traylon Maddox and all those boys in person, man, Zealous Hicks, Antonio White, they got some dudes, and they're going to be a really, really fun team to watch. And then there's one more team that really stood out to me that was impressive. Moody.
Oh, yeah.
From Alabama. Sure. Man, they are impressive. They were 10-2, I think 5-1 in their region or their conference. Man, them boys can play, and they're not really talked about a lot. Obviously, they're in a different state, but man, I mean, Ahmad Lane, 4-star going to Auburn, Josiah Dozier, the running back. They got a lot of players, and it was really fun to just see. I think that was the big standpoint for me, just being able to see so many teams from all over. Right, we seen the Miami team came up, we had a Camden, South Carolina come up. We seen Alabama from Moody. So I think it's going to be great to see going forward, just all those teams from different states and being able to see them kind of compete and play.
Absolutely, and I think with Moody, you could just tell they're going to be a good team this year. It's like they looked good at every single position. They had some superstars that we saw, but you can just tell from the way they were engaged within each outing. It's like, wow, they're going to be a really good team this year. I thought Stockbridge was also really impressive, and then Grayson.
Stockbridge, yeah.
Grayson went toe-to-toe and had a really strong run as well. I think they're going to be an interesting team as always.
Yes, sir. So that's our standouts from Corky Kell. But Craig, what teams are you most excited just to see this upcoming season? Obviously, we hinted at a little bit, but I mean, we got to see a little bit of it up close and personal. Obviously, no pads, but still getting to see them air the ball out. Who are you kind of most excited to see?
I think my first answer might surprise you. Prince Avenue Christian.
Interesting.
Yeah, they aren't going to have Bailey Stockton. They aren't going to have Ethan Christian. They aren't going to have who's the other receiver they lost? Josh Britt. They do have Gavin Hall, and obviously they have Aaron Philo. What are they going to look like this year? Can they replicate that same offensive production? I think they're going to be interesting, just a team that's been so dominant. Can Aaron Philo keep that up with the new receiving core? I think that will say a lot about him. In terms of the other classifications, obviously Walton with some of their new pieces they have. It's unbelievable. I think Hecklinski is going to do his thing this year. In terms of what quarterback, I mentioned it yesterday, would I be most confident with in a 3rd down and 20? I think it's him, honestly. He has that clutch factor. His accuracy is so good. The way he's able to see the field, he looked so comfortable out there. And to think that last year was really his first year as a full-time starter, that's scary. Obviously, I want to see Carrollton. What's Juju going to look like year 2?
Got
And
bigger.
I mean, there's just so many storylines. But honestly, that game we talked about a little bit, week 3, Buford and North Cobb. I mean, that's just going to be such a big test. And North Cobb's going to get up for that matchup, and that will be the first test for this Buford team to go up against a 7A Georgia school.
I think you're 100% right. I think we've televised that game too the last couple of years as well, and 100% agree. Right? Obviously, people are going to give Buford the edge, right, with everything they got going on. Again, the number 1 player in the country, all their top recruits, 4 4-star players or 5-star players they have. But what really stood out to me is that North Cobb's competitive, right? They're not going to back down. I thought Grimstead looks better. Obviously, he was good last year, but first, kind of year, with the reps, Malachi Singleton got hurt, but now this is his team, and I like their playmakers, so I think that's gonna be a game. And they play Buford close, despite maybe you say, hey, Buford has more talent. North Cobb seems to always play them tough, and it kind of comes down to that fourth quarter and that one possession or drive or interception, and that kind of just changes things up. But I think I 100% agree with you. I think that's gonna be exciting. I think Jeremy's taking a step forward. I know a lot of people are not saying that, but he looked great last year, but he just looks more calm. He just looked like he knows his reads. He just looked like he knows where to go with the football. Look, he got pre-snap progressions down pat. He knows what the defense is in, and he just knows where to go with the football. That was my biggest thing. I've seen him in person, and that's next level, right? He already has a bunch of talent at receiver that nobody's talking about. Cameron Lloyd, the Wyatt Sondermans, the Hunter Teals, the Jude Cascones, as you mentioned to me.
Yep.
He got weapons. So the fact that he's took that step forward even more, again, I think he's going to have a really great season. And then what was another team I'm kind of excited to see?
Let's talk real quick about North Cobb. We didn't even mention the running back. I can't remember his name. I know it's David.
David Asiemi.
Yeah, I mean, he's a big guy.
Yeah.
We didn't get to see him run the ball, but I mean, they have some power on that offense. They're always a physical team. So
no, 100% agree.
Yeah, he's one of the better running backs in the state this year.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the last team for me, I'm excited to see. I think 6A for me. Gainesville got a lot of players that not a lot of people know about. Obviously, Zion Ferguson just committed to UNC, but they got some young guys coming up. Baxter Wright, another year at the helm. How would they look at running back? Really good playmakers. You can't forget about. I'm just curious to see what that offense is going to look like this season. How do they, kind of rebound after getting so close in the state championship game but losing? I think they're going to be interesting to watch for as well. And obviously, Langston Hughes, will it be kind of open up in the air, or will Langston Hughes kind of dominate once again? Can't sleep on Woodward Academy either. So those are teams I'm excited to see.
And what do you think about Syer tweeting out, I think it was a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
He goes, I might pass for 5,000 this year over one of his highlights. I mean, I like the attitude. And
you got to be confident.
Let's talk about the Great Atlanta Bash. 410 yards, 20 of 23 passing, and he accounted for 4 touchdowns. So, I mean, you multiply that by 12 games, that's 5,000.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that's going to stop Syer is injury. I mean, the kid has the tools. He's smart. He's confident. He knows, when to get down. He knows how to go through his progression and his reads. He's just underrated. But he's been getting a lot of love lately. I've seen Luke kind of tweeted him out as well, Luke Winstel, who covers a lot, over 20K followers. He tweeted him out. So I think people are starting to see, and he's starting to get more on people's radar. But I wouldn't be surprised if he did it. The thing is going to be, Craig, can his playmaker step up, right? Aaron Gregory is the headliner, the 2026 class, rising sophomore. James Johnson's another player. But can those weapons around him step up? Michael Hasty's been receiving a lot of D1 offers at the running back position. It's just going to be setting him up in a good position to succeed. But I think when healthy, easily, he was third in passing last year, over 2,000 yards.
And that's what's such a shame about talking about him getting on the radar. I mean, you have been trying, we've been talking about him, but 3 games into last season, he was basically pacing the entire state. He ends up, I think, hurting his elbow.
Yep.
But it wasn't his throwing arm. It was when he was, I think, at the goal line and tried to get in, kind of fell on it.
Yeah.
And so he missed 4 games, and then they were dealing with other injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And that was after the Hughes game. They make their way into the playoffs, have a tough loss. But in terms of what he did in those games, what their offense looks like, what he's been doing this offseason, it's this is a huge opportunity for him. But yeah, missing kind of the heart of the season last year when all the other players were blowing up, like Aaron Nolan and obviously Hecklinski and Luke Nickel and all these other quarterbacks. It's he kind of missed out on that chance. But I think the numbers are going to speak for itself, and the accuracy we just alluded to, 20 of 23, he is one of the more accurate, high completion percentage quarterbacks in the state.
100% agree. And I think, if any advice I could give him, just look at E.J. Colson, right? And the only reason Rob bring him up is because he's played in the big games. He was in the same situation he was, right? Before he kind of played against Calvary Day, like he wasn't a ranked quarterback. Like nobody knew about E.J. Colson from Cedar Grove, right? He has a state championship run, has a pretty good season. Now he's a 4-star player by the announced commitment decision July 6th, right? So my biggest thing for him, I just tell him, say the course, have a good season. We've seen it, Craig. It only takes about one season for you, maybe even less than that. A couple of good games, and you'll start getting on people's radar, especially in Georgia, because Georgia is where obviously a lot of good talent is at. So I think if he has a good season, puts it together, man, he'll have some D1 offers in his back pocket.
Yep, and it'll be a big game week 2 against Mays. I forgot who they open up against. It will be their second game of the season, but Douglas County, we're hearing great things, a potential top 5, top 3 team in 6A. Yep. And obviously they're going to have that head-to-head with Hughes in region play. And Sire said he wanted that rematch. He's going to get it.
He did. Yep, this season. So we'll see. But we'll leave it there. We're going to react a little bit to the MVP camps that just happened. I've been sending out some invites actually for some of the players. So it was a lot of fun, in my opinion. I got to see some great talent, really a lot of the younger talent, some of the underrated players. Some that stood out to me, obviously, I think Christian Hunter, he's as advertised. He moves well. It's a really great first step. And as I mentioned in the interview, if you go to Georgia League Classic, you'll see it. He works on a lot of lunges. That's what allows for that quick lateral mobility, ability to kind of get off blocks. I think he's just one of those players, man. He's really, really good. And I think he's going to be able to carve himself out a role. Even as a freshman, I think he's going to carve himself out a little bit of a role with Milton. I'm not saying it'll be something big, but I think he'll have some kind of a role with them, whether it's, special teams or, maybe getting some playing time at the defensive tackle or defensive line position. I think he'll carve himself out some time. I think Austin Cook, too, from Gainesville, he's young, rising freshman. He was another standout to me. I thought he, had a really good camp. Really liked, how he was getting off the ball. His lateral agility as well, moving really, really, really well. And then left guard for Carrollton, Mateo Wells. I think he was really, really good. He just got invited also to the League Classic games in December. I thought he had a really good camp. Some guys that aren't probably as known on Milton. One is Mark Esley. Man, that kid impressed me. He has really great route running ability, really good in and out of his breaks. He can catch the contested ball. He might play slot this year. I don't know what they're going to do with their 2 stud receivers, obviously DeBron Gatling and CJ Wiley. But, wherever they're going to play him, he's not a guy that gets a lot of notice. But, guys is an absolute stud. He really impressed me. And then Jordan Green from Rutland. I know we don't talk about them a lot, from Macon. I thought he had, a really great camp. He was making some plays. One play, he got pushed off, Craig. And he's falling back, and then he still was able to kind of contort his body and kind of catch the interception one-handed. It was really, really impressive. He's another guy that just got the invite. So those are the ones that kind of stood out to me. Obviously, the quarterback from Jefferson, keep an eye on him. He had a really impressive camp. So that's what kind of stood out to me.
Yeah, you were talking about Milton. How impressive is it? They're going to be going for their 6th straight region title this year. They've not lost a region game since 2017. They're obviously going to probably finish against Lambert again. That's going to be the big matchup. Lambert's got a ton of talent. But that Milton offense this year, watch out. You got to see some of their receivers that are just going to be kind of within this passing tree. They're tied in Ryan G. He's one of the biggest mismatches in the state. I think Luke Nickel is – he is, in terms of the 7A quarterbacks, he definitely has a state championship potential. I think he learned a lot last year, having to go up against the buzzsaw Mill Creek in that game that kind of got away from them. But last year was such an impressive run for them. New coaching staff, all these new pieces, and they have an explosive offense returning without question, and a ton of underclassmen too. It's insane.
Yeah, and I'll just tell you what Coach Ben Reeves told me from Milton. He says we're not even in the semifinals without Luke. So, his coach talked that highly of him. I think that says a lot of just how good he is. So, I mean, again, they're going to be one of those fun teams to watch as well. But I thought the camps were great. It's great for the kids, some that aren't known, to get evaluated, prove their game, and kind of get their eyes set. Obviously on trying to get recruited and things like that. So they're always great camps. A lot of fun. That guy Austin Cook I mentioned, he plays for Georgia. He just I think enrolled into Gainesville High School. So kid was really, really impressive. I thought, in my opinion, the 2027 class, somebody to know. Not a lot of people are talking about him, but very, very impressive.
Then, were you mentioning Christian Hunter, the Milton kid?
Yeah, dude.
Okay, so he was at our Georgia Elite in the 8th grade game, and when we were handing out hoodies, which was always so much fun.
Always.
Are they the off-white or the gray? And it's just like, come on, guys. It's not that complicated. But, yeah, Christian Hunter, I was there when they brought up the rankings, and he was the number one player in that middle school thing. He's already, what is he, 6'1", 250, a freshman heading into Milton.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to – I mean, Milton's had so many good defensive linemen, right. Carl Lawson, all these guys.
And the thing was
he's
so
in
cool,
such a good situation
They
there.
build it within, too.
Yeah. So that's just one young guy to just watch out for. Might see him. He'll definitely be dressing out with varsity this year. They'll have a crazy rotation, but if they get some big leads, I mean, we're going to see him get that varsity film, and he's definitely already putting in the work. And with that size he has, he's only going to get better.
100% agree. But before we wrap our high school segment, Craig, any other major news stood out to you? Just players, commits, anything major on your radar?
Well, we haven't gotten to talk too much about the Dylan Raiola news to Buford.
You want to talk about that?
We talk about it a little bit.
Okay.
Just our predictions. We're still really high on 7A. We mentioned all these teams. Milton, still like Walton. They obviously beat Buford last year. I think Buford did get better, but you look at teams like Milton, they're improved. You look at Walton, they're improved as well. Mill Creek, they're still going to have something to say. I think they did lose to Buford last year, but later on in the season,
next level,
they hit a different gear. So it will be about watching Buford kind of throughout the season. How pass oriented are they going to be? What's their offensive style going to be like? And then what's he going to bring to the table? I think it's going to be a lot of excitement and buzz generated around it. We might be able to televise some of the games because the way it usually works, if GPB is going to televise Buford this week, they aren't going to do it 2 weeks in a row, and then that opens up an opportunity for us to get one of their games and vice versa. So I think it's going to be exciting just to watch Buford this year. It's kind of them versus 7A.
I thought you brought up a great point, right? What kind of offense does Buford deploy, right? They're kind of known for being a running-oriented team, right? Last year had Justice Haynes, probably one of the best tailbacks to walk the state of Georgia, right? And then this year they got Justin Baker, who's not talked about, but the kid's a 4-star, right? A lot of D1 offers. But like you said, what kind of offense is going to run? You got, and I feel like that was my biggest question to you last year when we talked a lot. I was like, well, I just don't. Dylan Wickey's good. Obviously, he's going to Virginia Tech, but I was like, I'm not stood out. I feel like even now, like it's transitioning, like we see in the NFL, you kind of like, you either kind of have that guy or you don't. And I think it's starting to transition to that kind of in high school. Not as much so in the higher levels, but I think it's still trying to, transition a little bit. And that's why I had Jeremy and them going in there beating them, because I believed in him. Yep. I knew that, he was the guy that can go in there and pull off the upset. Obviously, we know Dylan's as advertised, right? Number one player in the country. But how will that offense look? I think you bring up a great question. Will they be more run-oriented, how they've been in years past, or are they going to kind of do a little bit of both? But obviously, it's an adjustment. I keep saying this, guys. He played in Phoenix. He played for some other teams. Georgia football is just different, right? Think about it. Like, Buford won all 6 of their titles in all the classifications except 7A. 7A is just a different animal in its entirety, right? You got a bunch of D1 prospects, you got a bunch of Power 5 players. It's just a different breed, you know what I'm saying? And, I think what I'm curious to see really, Craig, what will his adjustment be? And I know people are like, oh, well, he's a top player. It doesn't matter. There is sometimes an adjustment period when you go over. That's like you coming over from a mid-major, potentially, right, and going to the SEC, or coming from maybe the Pac-12 to the SEC. There's levels to it, right? And I feel like 7A football in Georgia, I think that's top tier. So I'm curious to see how he's going to look early to start on the season. They're going to play some out-of-state teams. But like you said, when they play the North Cobbs and they start playing some of the top talent, how will he look?
Yeah, and Buford, we've always known they can pass the ball. And, like, they have solid receivers, but it's like when you're going up against these defenses that have just really good secondaries. We saw it with Aiden Jackson at Walton last year, a guy that just makes incredible plays, can tackle, can shut down your go-to. I haven't seen that from Buford. I haven't seen them where it's like, man, they can really pass on defenses. Watch out. If you try to crowd the box, they're just going to go over the top. So even if Dylan is as advertised, which I think he's really good at moving around and throwing on the run, off balance, off platform throws, he's got that. But can these receivers really be elite against some of these better secondaries, these aggressive defenses, these hard hitting defenses like Milton? You talked about Georgia football. You scramble around there too long, you're going to get hit right in the ribs. So I think the physicality on defense, and then can they have 1-2 superstar receivers that can have a 10 touchdown season? We haven't seen that from them.
100% agree. Even though they got one of their best weapons in the country in Khalil Bolden, right?
Yep.
But they continue to use him in that way. It's going to be interesting, man. I can't wait. It's going to be exciting. Obviously, as I tell you, Craig, off air, I love parody. So, we'll see what happens. I hope it's a good year. Obviously, when teams dominate, that's cool. But I just love, like, the upsets that happened last year. Teams like, oh, what? They beat them? I just love that. That makes for the sport so much more fun and entertaining. But we'll see. I think we're in store for a good year.
Yep. And I think in these non-region matchups too, when you're playing a Buford, we're going to see teams be aggressive, go for onside kicks, just try to make those headlines by knocking off what will probably be the top-ranked team in the state at that time. But I mean, even 2 years ago, I mean, you had Hughes nearly beating them in the finals when Aaron Nolan was a sophomore, his first year starting. We've seen how good the rest of the state is, but it's undeniable that this Buford team has kind of historic talent on that roster.
100%. So we're going to see how it plays out. It's going to be a lot of fun to cover it and actually talk about it. So y'all keep it tapped right here, but we're going to keep going. Georgia Tech, as I've been telling Craig, doing some very, very impressive stuff. So we're going to share a screen with you guys from 247 Sports right now. Let you guys be able to see this graphic really quick. I just think they're knocking it out the box, honestly. They just landed this week. CJ Jackson, 4-star edge player from Tucker, 6'3", 225. Had a really good season, double-digit sack leader. I think I had over 50 tackles. I thought landing this guy was huge for them, in my opinion. He had interest from Georgia, LSU, all of the big Power 5 SEC schools, and I think he had a really, really good season last year, man. I thought they knocked it out the box with that one. They just landed Trajan Greco, who's kind of – I know he's listed as a CB, but this guy's really versatile, right? We've seen him in person plenty of times. When I first started, actually, in the industry as an intern, he was running receiver. And I think he was running, safety. But, like, now, he's running cornerback. But he's just a guy, like, one of those chess pieces you could just put all over the field. That's valuable to me. If you got a corner that can play multiple spots and still be elite at his position – and then they got Trey Horn, who's coming over from South Carolina, athlete. Had a really good, I think it was all South Carolina state team there when he was there. I think that was another good pickup for them. Big Jordan Floyd, the offensive tackle, is really good. Traylon Maddox, as we mentioned earlier, athlete. Going to be another one of those weapons. Aaron Philo, the air raid system, looks like they're kind of trying to change the kind of way they do offense. I think Brent Key's been kind of knocking it out the box. Who was some others that stood out to me? I'll throw it to Craig. Kamani Alexander was another really good one. Luke Hartbrink can kind of be the athlete/tight end for them. I think he'll be interesting. Well, but who are some that stood out to you?
The big David Prince, big tight end. One before I go into Trajan Greco, you mentioned Tucker, and we have to talk about this for a second.
Sure.
Their quarterback, Jamar Graham. You saw how big Tucker's quarterback was at the 7-on-7.
Right. I didn't even think about that.
This guy, he's listed right now on Tucker's roster. Multi-year starter, by the way, 6'8", 240 pounds. Last year, he was 6'5", 220. He's at 6'8", 240 right now. He was slinging the ball throughout that tournament. I just think that's super interesting. That's the biggest quarterback I've ever seen. So
right.
Tucker's going to be an interesting team to watch this year. Obviously, you mentioned his teammate. He's currently, CJ Jackson, the number 1 recruit in that class. But what makes Trajan Greco such a valuable piece with the versatility? He understands the game perfectly well. He knows the lingo, knows the plays. He can pop in on defense after he gets a breath or two. go in there at corner, safety, doesn't matter the down, doesn't matter the situation. He knows how to just go in and make an immediate impact. Same thing offensively. He can get plugged in. He's got a big frame, the 6'2", 180 pounds. He can just do so much, and it's just his understanding of the situation where he can just go to either side of the ball, any situation, just plug himself in immediately, make an impact. And we saw that throughout the tournament. He was taking reps, both sides of the ball, making tough catches. Really, I mean, I saw him make some where it was clearly a defensive flag, but I mean, he still was making the catch, and then he'd go right back to defense and was running around in that secondary. So he's well conditioned also.
I thought his toe drag at the end of the game when they were playing Collins, I think almost pretty much sealed the victory, was really, really impressive. Yeah. So, yeah, man, I think like when you have chess pieces like that, you could just move all over the field, all over the board. I mean, I think, it's next level. And as I've been saying, Craig knows, I got clips. I think Georgia Tech is, again, a program on the rise, and they're nailing the recruiting, right? Top 20 right here, as you guys can see. And I think they're top 13 on Rivals. So we'll see if they get more talent. But I think what's impressive, too, is that they're getting the talent in the state. A lot of times you'll see the talent go out of the state or anything like that, but it's staying in the state. So they're doing a really good job there. I think.
Yeah, speaking of jackets.
Right. We got a little wasp in here, but yeah.
No, this is such a great class. I thought last year they brought some nice pieces in as well, but I mean, this is the year. We talked about like college football's changing, all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This really seems like the year where it's like you've got to cash in right now, get a good foundation, get a good class, and be competitive this upcoming season to start building that excitement and building that brand. I think that'll be the key to Georgia Tech this year. They've also had some great transfers. I was mentioning on my show about Haynes King, the quarterback that is coming over from Texas A&M.
Right.
He's going to be battling for the job. So they've got a lot of just really interesting pieces. We'll see what they look like this year. But in terms of hitting these 7A schools, getting key pieces early, shaping this class, and top 20 in the country. But more importantly, they're like top 3 in the ACC right now, right where Florida State's at. And I think it's only Clemson and UNC above them at this point, and it's not by much.
No, it's not. So they're doing a really, really good job, man. Very, very impressed with them guys. I think they're going to have a pretty good season, better than most people think, and that's going to be the start of, I think, the rise of their program, obviously. But let's keep going. I think Craig brought some great points about the College Baseball World Series. LSU is now a women basketball champion and a College Baseball World Series champion as well. Despite giving up the World Series, record, College World Series record, 24 runs in Game 2, the Tigers bounced back in a winner-take-all game last night. Some dominant pitching by their starter Thatcher Hurd. A lot of good offensive production. It was up and down, in the lineup, throughout. But I mean, they out-hit the Gators 24-5 in a decisive game, forced Florida to use 6 pitchers. That's not a typo. 6 pitchers in a game. Sheesh. So after giving up a 2-homer to Wyatt Langford in the bottom of the first, that was unhittable, giving up just 2 first inning hits and striking out 7 in 6 innings to earn the win. So they turned this early 2-run deficit into a 4-run lead, scoring 6 runs in the top of the second after batting around, chasing Gator starter Jack Calignan. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. But their offense continued to pour it on in the rest of the games, attacking on 4 more runs in the top of the 4th, highlighted by Josh Pearson's 2-run homer to the right. Catcher Alex Malasso scored the final run of the inning, coming around to score from the first base on a single by Cade Balesso.
Yeah, what an odd series.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a really tight game in Game 1, and then Game 2 is a blowout.
Yeah.
You say, okay, fresh start for Game 3, and then LSU comes out and hits like they do.
Yeah.
They had 2 guys that had 7 at-bats in 9 innings. They literally almost batted around in every inning. And it was just exciting. But what is it about LSU, I mean, that is allowing them to excel kind of at all these different sports right now? I mean, we're looking into it. LSU has been the king of college baseball. They've had the number 1 attendance for the last, I think, 27 straight years now. They broke the attendance record this year, not only for their own school, but the entire College Baseball World Series broke it before the Game 3. And then 25,000 plus fans showed up to that. LSU fans just are really supportive, and that's what it takes. They support every sport, whether that's because they want to treat it like Mardi Gras or they're genuinely interested. It doesn't really matter. It's an
Right.
event for them, and that's what it's going to take to really excel at all your athletic sports. And the better you are across the board, the more money you're going to have for these collectives and NILs and the branding and what it means to participate and wear the gold and purple. And so I think LSU is kind of on fire right now, and it's going to be a really big year. I mean, even their football team last year
It's
made a
competitive.
huge leap in that first year with Chip Kelly.
They did. And I think Jordan Daniels just came out and said they have the best QB room in the country. So
Ooh,
it's bold, very bold. But yeah, we're gonna see, man. I think it was interesting. But anything else out from the game that just stood out to you?
I thought the comments by their head coach were interesting after the big Wake Forest win, which was also just incredible. I knew LSU was the real deal when they didn't celebrate at all after getting out of a jam in the top of the 11th inning. I was like, okay, most teams in baseball, softball, you see them kind of celebrate to get out of an inning. No, they were determined. They had one goal this year. The SEC was outstanding. It wasn't just LSU and Florida this year. They had probably a historic season. That was exciting across the board. Even teams like I think Vanderbilt, Alabama were more competitive. And then their coach was saying, because I think that 3 of their stars were transfers that came in through the portal, and he was just saying, hey, transfer to Baton Rouge. We don't care what other people say. Come
Right.
here. We're trying to win games. So
That's it.
they are doubling down and trying to be that destination. And I think that was their first title since 2009. So that was a huge accomplishment for them to survive that tournament.
100% agree. But we're gonna leave it there, guys, for our news. Hope you guys been liking the coverage. The past couple of weeks we have not been here. We've been on site, but we've been trying to do live so you guys can see what we've been seeing. But it's been doing really good. A lot of views, so we appreciate you guys for always tuning in for that, helping support us as well. But yeah, let's move to our third segment before we wrap up the show. John Collins was traded to Utah Jazz for Rudy Gay in a future second-round pick. Craig, I'll throw it to you first on this one. Just what stood out to you there, and what do you think about the trade?
It's interesting. I mean, John Collins was obviously one of those focal pieces. What do you think it means for kind of this new coaching staff, the new era they're trying to create? I mean, he was a guy that was a solid, reliable player, shot the ball well, I think 55% plus, 15 points a game. What do you think?
I think John Collins had a great start to his career. Like he was helpful with Trey when Trey was young, like those first couple of seasons. But I think he kind of teetered off a little bit towards the end. Like when he first started shooting like 40% from 3, shooting that percentage that you were referring to and talking about, 50 plus. But towards the latter stage, as Trey became even more focal point of the offense. I thought he was not as good. I felt like when I seen him in person, I felt like he wasn't aggressive. He came like he wasn't as big of a piece of their offense as he was before when they got DeJounte Murray. When he made the little run, he was there. But I just think he kind of hit his ceiling. I think maybe he'll be in a different situation now with Utah, but I think he hit his ceiling and he just wasn't very productive towards the latter half after he got paid that 5-year, $120+ million deal.
Yeah, it is. I see the comment right here. It's kind of a weird trade. I think like Atlanta and Utah have sort of had a thing though the last several years. Quinn Snyder coming over from there. They seem to have. I don't know if they're just in more direct contact, but it'll be interesting. So, what do you think this says about just Trae Young staying in Atlanta and trying to build around him?
I think that's what they're trying to do. This is why you make the move because the NBA has changed. You cannot no longer have 3 max players anymore. I think the max you can have is like 2. So I think they made this trade because you still have like over 80 million that's still in the books for a John Collins. So I think they tried to move off of that while they made that trade, and they were like, okay, hey, let's build more around him. We got better big men that we can probably try to target or to build around the team. And I think they like Sadiq Bey. They're going to bring him back. And then they got Okongwu, their young big, who's really, really good. Got Capella still. We'll see how long he stays around. But I think they're trying to build some other pieces. I've heard DeAndre Hunter been rumored in some trades as well. So we'll see. I think Atlanta's just trying to, build a contender. Right now they're not a contender, but I think they're trying to get those pieces in there where they can build that. I think for Trey, It's just going to depend, right? We know what Trey is. Trey's about, 5'11", 6 foot. Obviously a great sniper, great playmaker. He's not going to give you a lot defensively. So they're just going to have to build more around him, get some good wing players and some good big men.
So you're talking about John Collins. Was that an $80 million thing you were talking about with him?
That's left, but he got 5 years, 120.
And then I think I saw something about they're like a $25.3 million trade exception that would go into. So obviously they're still going to be making potential moves. The trade doesn't even become official till July 6th. That's when things usually heat up.
Yep.
Speaking of heat, though, it's like, where do you think at this point the Hawks stand in the East? We saw what they did last year, kind of having some competitive playoff games, but just watching what the Heat were able to do this year, where they're at. Where do you think the Hawks are now that they can evaluate kind of what happened this year?
It's kind of funny because nobody predicted the Heat to make it to the finals, right? You're an 8th seed. Obviously, you had injury that went in there for the Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis Antetokounmpo. He was injured for some games, but the Hawks actually beat the Heat to get the 7th seed in the playoffs, which is kind of interesting. But I think the Hawks just have the same thing with the Heat. He'd have a decent team. A good team. I think 3 of the past 4 years they've been in the conference finals. That says a lot. 2 of the past 4 years, I think they've been in the finals. So they got to just build a team around Trey. I think, one, they need more pieces that can defend. Obviously, Murray, we got to see how that project continues to go. But I would say I think they're in the same spot. I think they're at the bottom. I think they're, at best, maybe a top 5 team in the East, top 6 at best. But if they go get some pieces in free agency, some pieces built around Trey, maybe it'll be better. But I still consider them, at best, maybe a top 6, top 5 team. Barely kind of fringe playoff team, barely making it.
Yep, I see John Collins. Yep, and then, gosh, I'm such a bad Atlanta native. How did the Hawks do in the draft?
They got a guard.
Okay,
which makes no sense. You got plenty of guards. You need wing players. You don't need any more guards, right? Maybe he could be the backup to Trey, but it's like that's not what you need. You don't need a guard. They got a guard out of, I forget where they got him from, but I remember seeing it and I was like, what did they get a guard for? They don't. Maybe to back up, but they got some good pieces. AJ Griffin, I think they got the guy Johnson from Duke. They got, not in this draft, but from other drafts. I just think they need better bigs, more, maybe like could spread the floor, and they need better wings. Their wings don't do enough for them. They need like a Jimmy Butler or trying to think of some good wings in the league right now. They just need more wings that can do multiple things and can create their own shots and can score at a good rate for them.
Yeah, I don't think it's an impossible situation they're in. There's going to be all these teams that are going to be just like paying some of these guys just astronomical salaries, but then there's a ton of proven talented players where you bring them in, know what you need, and just focus on getting a good seed and winning games. It's not about just having the guy that's going to bring the most star power. You can build a team that is going to kind of raise the profile of your entire franchise. We've seen that with the Heat too. Some unsung heroes,
100%,
kind of stepping up in the big games.
Yeah, and the guy is actually, thanks Jimmy, Kobe Buffkin from Michigan is the guy they drafted.
Okay.
So again, I just don't see the point when you have good guard play. You need wings and bigs is what the Hawks need. So that's my thoughts on that. A really interesting one I think right now is Damian Lillard has actually been rumored to want to go to Miami Heat. My opinion on that, I think it'd be a great fit. Why? Because he doesn't want to play with a bunch of superstars. I don't think Miami has a superstar. I think they have a star in Jimmy Butler, but I don't think they have any superstars on their team. They need somebody that can go get them a bucket. I feel like they struggle too many times scoring. I thought Bam had a good finals, 20-plus points he averaged, 10-plus rebounds, but they need a guy that can close out games for them. It's a lot of games against, the Nuggets, they were battling late and they couldn't get a bucket or, obviously Tyler Hero didn't play with another one of their wing players, but I'd be curious to see if they do make the trade for him, who are they going to give up, right? Is that Duncan Robinson? Is that Kyle Lowry? Is that some future seconds or firsts? Do they throw Tyler Hero in there? I think that'd be a good fit for Dame because he'd be the point guard. He's good at facilitating. He has deep snipe range ability.
Yep.
So I think it'd be interesting.
That would be a really exciting move, I feel like. And I was looking at the potential landing spots. That's the one that seems to be talked about the most. I think it would be huge for him. He's been in Portland. He's been doing his thing there. They love him. He plays incredibly hard for them. He leads them, but putting him on Miami, his range, his star power, I think the Heat would embrace him, I think he'd have a chance to be a real superstar in the East and just be able to finally prove himself on a different team. I mean, that's the thing with him. He's been so good, but he's been with the same team. Seeing him kind of move over to a different conference and a different coaching staff and different playmakers around him, I think kind of see what he still has left in the tank, and it'd be interesting to see what that deal would look like and who they would trade.
Yeah, I think it would.
And with the Scoot Henderson trade, I mean, draft pick, it's like this might be an opportunity for Portland to move him and
move on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because how his career started is they had an old veteran that has been there for a long time. I don't know if you remember LaMarcus Aldridge.
Yep.
Dame was the young guy coming in. He played with him for a little bit, ended up leaving, going to San Antonio.
That's right.
So it could be kind of the same situation, right? Dame's a veteran. Scoot's just coming to the league, young guy. He could possibly get to that level. Scoot's really, really good. And then Dame, goes out maybe to Miami or whatever team, and then becomes Scoot's team, and then he's kind of that star caliber player there. So I think it's gonna be interesting to see and kind of monitor. But if I'm Dame, I mean, obviously Portland's cool and nice, but I would try somewhere else.
When was the last time Portland had a pick that high?
Oh, it's been a minute. Probably since Dame, because the top 3, Dame was chosen I think 7. So last pick in the top 10, that was probably when he was drafted in 2012, maybe.
Yeah. So number 3. Last year they were the number 7.
Oh yeah, they got Shaedon Sharpe.
Okay. Number 16, 2020. So yeah, they really haven't been in that top 3. No. Yeah, Greg Oden was the last time they had a pick
in the top.
Yeah, 2007.
Yeah, so long time. I mean, I think that'd be great, Jimmy. Your Dame to Lakers. I mean, I think that'd be interesting. But what would they give up to get him though? Like, what is the Lakers? Are they going to move off of Austin Reeves? They're going to move off the young guys again, move off Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura, and because Lakers don't really even have no draft picks like that, and that's why they've been hesitant to trade. They traded so many just to get AD over there. So I think it'd be a great fit. I just don't know how they're going to go about doing so. Yeah.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, he gives them that long range sniping ability. Sometimes, Lakers, like LeBron, can play more off the ball. Dame can go get you a bucket. I think that'd be a great fit. But see how they're able to do it. But last topic before we conclude the show, I'm gonna throw it to y'all for questions in a second. Just any questions you guys want us to answer. What's your thoughts on Scoot Henderson and Victor Wembanyama going top 3, and also obviously Brandon Miller going top 2?
I think Scoot's really huge. He was working out with Portland. That's when he went viral for looking super jacked in that photo. And they're like, okay, this guy is not your typical rookie guard.
Right.
And he's not. He has been sharpened by battling it out in the G League. I think he's coming in with an interesting last few years, not going the college route. I think he has a lot to prove. And he's definitely one of the most motivated guys I've seen since high school. In terms of Wemby, that's obviously huge. You already see the San Antonio fans embracing him. That's a really great fan base. They have a history of number 1 picks working out for them, so you already see it. Wemby, we'll get you breakfast tacos. Wemby, we love you. So San Antonio is ready to kind of just make him mayor, honestly. So they're so excited, and I've seen the headlines where is Wemby already a top 5 player? I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't be able to answer that question.
Come on, top 5 already.
I'd have to see him play
in the league. Yeah,
and then I saw also that he's not going to be playing on the FIBA with the France team, but that's another exciting aspect to him being at San Antonio. And once he gets established there, representing France, we saw Tony Parker do it as well. And actually, I think they beat the USA team that one year. So I think he's a perfect fit for San Antonio, and they could not be happier.
For sure. And I think you brought a great point about San Antonio, right? They haven't had kind of those years really since 2014, 2013 when it was in the finals. It's been a long time since San Antonio's been like actually good. So the fact that they now have a franchise cornerstone piece they can build around, I think, that's obviously going to help them. I'm not going to go that far and say he's a top 5, top 10 player. I have to see him play. I can't go that far. I think media overdoes it sometimes when they say things like that. Like, let's see him play and suit up first. But nonetheless, he's great for that town. I'm sure they love it. And they got something to look forward to, And I think Scoot, I seen some of his film the other day. He's exciting, man. and I think he's gonna bring that kind of that aura, that thing that fans want to come and see and come out and watch. And I think that's what kind of most impressive for him, obviously. And yeah, when I made that point, Dave, I was talking about actually in championship contention. I mean, I guess you could say 2018 because they did battle against Golden State. If Kawhi doesn't get hurt, yada yada, maybe you can say. But I mean, in true championship contention,
2014,
easily. So
when they beat LeBron in Miami.
I think that's the last time they've actually been kind of relevant. But we're gonna throw it to you guys. Any more questions before we wrap up the show today? Thanks for everybody for tuning in. The 3-4 people, definitely appreciate it. But what questions you guys got before we conclude the show?
Shout out to Jordan. I saw him watching as well.
Yep, our loyal supporters, Jordan, Jimmy, and Dave.
Was San Antonio swept by the Warriors that year?
I think so. I think that's when they had KD, and it was just unfair.
Yeah, that's the thing. And then, yeah, you had that 2014 run where they were able to beat the Heat, and then after that, yeah, the Warriors were just dominating.
Yeah,
and everyone knew that San Antonio was so old at that point.
Yeah,
it wasn't going to happen.
No, not at all. But yeah, guys, before they're tuning in, thanks again. Just if you have any questions, pop them in the chat. We'll address them before we kind of conclude out today. Okay, so thoughts on Bilal Coulibaly draft pick and Poole to the Wizards. Are the Wizards building a championship level team? That's a little bit of a stretch. I'm not going to say that. I've actually heard rumors too of Washington thinking about moving to Virginia. The Wizards moving the franchise. So I think that's another interesting thing. The Poole trade, I think they just did that. The Warriors, I don't know if the Chris Paul thing is going to work out. But they just need an adult. Like Jordan Poole's young. He's spending $500,000 on dates. Obviously, it's not my business. I'm just saying. He's young. Sometimes when you make that big kind of money like that, you let it go to your head. You had that incident with him getting punched by Draymond. And then you had him at the end kind of just, getting upset with his role and his playing time. And when you're trying to contend for a title, you can't have that. Everybody has to be bought in. Everybody has to know their role and succeed in their role. So, I mean, obviously, I think he's a good piece for the Wizards going forward. And maybe this will kind of help him kind of, reset, kind of recalibrate his career. But Wizards are young. So I think it'll be really, really interesting to see, what happens. But I think the Bilal Coulibaly draft pick is obviously good. That's going to help them out. Then they're going to be an interesting team to watch. Just, how decent can they be in year one? How would they look offensively and defensively? I'm not going to say championship level team. I think that's a bit extreme. But yeah, I'll leave that there. Craig, do you have any comments?
I don't. I haven't looked too much into that.
Okay, respect. And then,
but it's an interesting question. I will definitely go back and see.
Yeah, for sure. And then we got one from Jimmy. He says, update on Auburn football. Will they be at Bama? I think he said, will they beat
them?
Will they beat Bama?
Well, they need to probably recruit some more of those Moody players.
They got Amon Lane. So
Lane, I'm telling you, one of the more impressive guys we saw just physically in that secondary. He is college ready right now.
They got some players right now actually from Georgia that are really good. They got Connor Lew on the offensive line. I heard he's probably going to start. They got, I think, Terrence Love, if I'm not mistaken. They flipped him from a school. I can't remember the school, but he's going to Auburn. I think they got a chance, to really, be competitive. I mean, it's been a couple years for Auburn potentially since they've been like that. I think the quarterback, man, how good can the quarterback play be this year? Bama's going to be interesting. I think Bama has not figured out the quarterback situation. I think Bama got some studs though, but they don't have a true number. Like, am I mistaken? They don't have a true number one. Like, they got the kid from Buford that's been there for a while, but who's Alabama's true number one receiver?
Yeah, I think with Auburn, it's like, can they beat Alabama? Yes, we've seen the Iron Bowl. They can have a crappy season and go in there and win that game.
Yeah.
But are they going to be higher than Alabama in the standings this year? I do not think so. They can always get up for that game and pull off something, but I don't know. I just haven't seen it. It seems like offensively, they don't know kind of what their identity is. They haven't had that superstar quarterback that Alabama has had the last few seasons, and that carries over when you're running the similar offense and having that production where Auburn's still trying to kind of find that rhythm, but they've been picking up some key pieces, I think, and
right.
It'll be a big year. But the West is going to be so So challenging this year.
100% agree. And then the last question to address following Declan Rice rumors, transfer rumors, if you are Najee, where do you think he should go? That's tough. I don't think either one of those teams are good for him. Honestly, I think Arsenal is deep as far as their forwards go. They just got Kai Havertz in the transfer from Chelsea. Chelsea's losing a lot of players as well. But I think Man City has a really good, starting, kind of, forward lineup. I just don't know what kind of role will he carve out for them, in their attack and what they run, right? You still got Foden still in there. You still got Erling Haaland. I think you still got Aguero. If I'm not mistaken, I got to go back and see who their other forward is. I can't think of the top of my head, but they got so many. I think both teams have really good forward play, and I think it's going to be, maybe harder for him. I got to look that up though. I've heard about it with Declan Rice, but I'm gonna have to look more into that. I think I'm gonna address it kind of more in depth. I wouldn't mind seeing him on actually Bayern. I know obviously Man City has a bid for him. Oh, he's a midfielder. But I think their play has been good. If I had to say between those two, maybe Arsenal. I think Arsenal can really improve in their midfielder play. I thought he was a striker. But I think Arsenal, Alvarez, thank you. I think Arsenal will probably be a better fit. I know Man City's in there with them. But I think Arsenal would be a better fit for Declan Rice. But we'll see. I know Man City just put in the bid for 90 mil, but we will find out. But I'm gonna roll with Arsenal. But before we wrap, Craig, any other topics you want to discuss before we wrap the show?
Yeah, just to explain that. So he's on West Ham right now.
Yeah.
And so this is like the Premier League's trying to buy him out, and it's who's he going to end up with?
Yeah, he's saying like, who would you rather see him with? Yeah, soccer is really interesting because you could
no teams like selling him. He's taking the next step up.
Where does he say he plays?
West Ham.
No, West Ham's in Premier League, so they can buy a team can buy your contract.
Man City and Arsenal are the two competing for him.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah,
and then West Ham would get that 90 million.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's almost like soccer. It's like kind of almost buying and trade. You want to like buy a player low and then sell them high. Like Bayern's been doing that a lot lately. Dortmund's been doing that a lot. Like they had Gio Reyna. They bought him low, sold him high. They bought Haaland low, sold him high. That's really, kind of what you want to do. And Bayern's in the Bundesliga. They're not in the Premier League. But it's going to be interesting to see. But, yeah, I got to get on my soccer news. So thank you, Dave, for pointing that out to me. Got to get more on that. We have been really, really busy here at the office with football, and so much is going on.
So West Ham would hold all the cards. Like if the offer's not good enough, they don't have to trade them.
No.
So they can, yeah. So if it's two teams in a bidding war, they can just let them, kind of like an auction.
Yeah, I mean, whatever they feel is the best fit for them. I mean, they obviously do.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But all right, guys, thanks so much again for tuning in. That's all we got for today. You guys are great, our loyal fans, Dave, Jimmy, Jordan, and the other one that views as well. Definitely comment your names below. We appreciate you guys. What's some content y'all want to see? Follow us on Twitter at Najee Wilk, at Craig Sager for our content you want to see. We definitely want our audience that we've been building. We definitely want to address questions and give you guys content you want to see. So make sure you hit us up. We'll see you guys next week, same time, noon, on Tuesday. And keep it locked for more updates and news throughout the rest of the week. Thanks again.